Okay, picture this. It's the late 18th century. Colonial powers are carving up the world, especially India. And right there you have this ruler, a king, who's not just resisting, but he's using rockets in battle way before Europe really got the hang of them.
Yeah, pretty incredible stuff. A figure who was, well, genuinely a nightmare for his enemies, but a real hero to his own people.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into the story of Tipu Sultan, the Tiger of Mysore. We're talking about his really audacious stand against the British East India Company as it was tightening its grip.
Right. And our mission here is to really dig into the sources, the historical accounts, the research, and pull out the key insights. We want to understand not just what he did, but, why his story still matters so much, his innovations, his strategy, his whole legacy of resistance.
Okay, let's unpack this. This is the story of a king who really shook an empire. So, to understand Tipu Sultan, we need to know where he came from. He wasn't exactly born into a peaceful life, was he?
No, not at all. He was born in 1751 in Devonali. His father was Hyder Ali, a very skilled military commander who actually seized power in Mysore. So Tipu grew up in a very militarized and politically charged environment.
Forged in conflict, basically.
Yeah.
What did the sources tell us about those early years? How did that shape him?
Well, what's fascinating is that the accounts show he had this incredibly rigorous training from a very young age. We're talking war, politics, languages, even science. It wasn't just theory either.
Right.
At just 15, he was apparently already leading cavalry units against British forces.
The scene, wow.
Yeah. It shows this really early grasp of warfare. He wasn't just waiting to inherit power. He was actively involved, shaped by battle, as historians say.
Okay, now let's get to one of maybe the most astonishing parts.
Yeah.
The rockets. While Europe's messing around with basic cannons, Tipu's using rockets.
Yeah.
What were these things like?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. And no, we're not talking about fireworks here. Imagine these metal cylinders, okay, packed tight with explosive powder. And they were designed to fly, sources say, up to 2 kilometers.
2 kilometers. In the 1700s.
Exactly. Think about the impact. They'd fly into enemy ranks, scatter them, set tents and supplies on fire. Pure chaos. British accounts from the time literally call them terrifying. You can just imagine the psychological shock.
So he didn't just, find some rockets and use them. He developed this.
That's the key point. He didn't just deploy them. He actively improved them, systematized their use. He set up a special rocket corps, the Fathul Mujahideen, something like 5,000 men strong.
A dedicated rocket unit. That sounds incredibly modern.
It really was very specialized for the time. This wasn't just brute force. It was strategic fear, a kind of scientific approach to war that put him way ahead of his rivals, including the British.
He saw the potential and built a whole system around it. That's innovation.
Right. It shows foresight. Understanding that technology isn't just the tool itself, but how you integrate it, how it changes the game.
And this wasn't just a flash in the pan. This technology had a life after him.
Oh, absolutely. This is maybe the most telling part of the legacy. After Tipu's final defeat and death, the British were so impressed, maybe even a bit scared, by these rockets, that they literally took his designs back to England, studied them. And what came out of that? The Congreve rocket.
No way. The famous Congreve rockets were based on Tipu's designs.
Directly inspired by them, yeah. It's a massive testament to his military genius that his enemies basically copied his homework. His innovation outlived him and influenced Western military tech.
Incredible. So his whole rule seems dominated by war. These Anglo-Mysore wars, 4 of them between 1767 and 1799. How did he keep fighting for so long against the growing power of the British?
Well, it's a story of incredible resilience, really. The first war, under his father, Hyder Ali, actually ended with the British being forced into a humiliating treaty.
Okay, so they started strong.
Right. Then Tipu takes over during the Second War, after his father dies. He doesn't just hold the line, he wins key victories. And crucially, the treaty signed after that war, the Treaty of Mangalore, basically recognized Mysore as an equal power.
An equal to the British East India Company. That's significant.
Hugely significant. But the Third War, that was tougher. He tried alliances even with the French, but ultimately, Mysore lost territory. And in a really harsh move, 2 of his young sons were taken as hostages by the British to guarantee the treaty terms.
Wow. That must have been devastating. Did that break his spirit?
Apparently not. That's what's remarkable. Sources say he immediately started rebuilding, regrouping, preparing. It's around this time we get that famous quote attributed to him. "It is far better to live like a tiger for a day than a jackal for 100 years. And that really wasn't just a saying for him, It seems to have been his actual code. Defiance over subservience, no matter the cost.
Live like a tiger, that says it all. But his thinking wasn't just about Mysore or even just India, right? He looked beyond that.
Exactly. He saw the bigger picture. He understood the British weren't just a local problem, they were a global empire.
So how did he try to counter that?
Through diplomacy. Really ambitious diplomacy, actually. The sources show him writing letters, reaching out for allies. He wrote to the Ottoman Sultan in Istanbul, seeking support from the wider Islamic world. He contacted the ruler of Afghanistan.
Okay, building regional ties.
But he went even further. Most famously, he reached out to Napoleon Bonaparte, who was in Egypt at the time.
Napoleon.
Seriously.
He tried to ally with Napoleon against the British in India.
That was the plan. Imagine that. A Franco-Mysorean alliance potentially coordinating with other powers to push the British out of India entirely.
That's audacious. A global strategy.
Absolutely. It shows he was thinking on a completely different level than most regional rulers. Even though Napoleon's Egyptian campaign fizzled out and the alliance never really happened in a practical sense, the attempt itself, it just shows his strategic vision. He saw the interconnectedness of global power politics.
So he's this military innovator, a global strategist.
Hmm.
But what about running his kingdom day to day? Was he just focused on war?
Not at all. And this is another really key part of his story. Beyond the battlefield, he was a serious administrator focused on modernizing Mysore.
Okay, how so?
Well, think about the basics of a functional state. He introduced a new calendar. He standardized weights and measures crucial for trade and fair taxes. He pushed agricultural improvements, encouraged new crops, irrigation. He was big on boosting trade and industry, especially silk production. Mysore actually became a major exporter.
So building the economy, not just the army.
Precisely. It was about creating a strong, self-sufficient state. And to symbolize that independence, he minted his own coins, gold and silver, with his name.
Right, asserting sovereignty.
And get this, he even established a navy. Very few Indian kingdoms had a real navy then. He understood the need to protect the coast, protect trade routes.
A navy too? Wow.
Yeah, so you combine all that military strength, economic development, administrative reforms, cracking down on corruption, fair taxes, building infrastructure, and Mysore really became arguably the most advanced, most prosperous state in India at that time.
But despite all that,
Yeah.
it didn't end well for him, did it? The Fourth Anglo-Mysore War.
No, 1799 was the end. The British came back stronger this time, and crucially, they had allies, the Marathas and the Nizam of Hyderabad, other Indian powers who felt threatened by Tipu or saw advantage in siding with the British.
So he was isolated.
Largely, yes. Fewer resources, weaker alliances this time. Betrayal played a part too, it seems. But even facing overwhelming odds, he refused to surrender.
That tiger quote again.
Exactly. The final battle was at his capital, Srirangapatna. Accounts describe it as incredibly fierce. Tipu himself was apparently right there in the thick of it, fighting at the city gates.
Oh, he died fighting.
He did. When they found his body later, it was in a gateway. Piled him in casualties, reportedly with a sword still in hand and multiple wounds, defiant to the very last breath.
A dramatic end. And the aftermath. You mentioned earlier, he wasn't seen as perfect by everyone, even within his own lands.
Right, and that's important context. His legacy is complex. While we rightly focus on his anti-colonial struggle, sources do note he could be harsh, particularly with rebels or in conquered territories. There are accounts of forced conversions in some areas, which obviously caused resentment.
Okay.
So his internal rule wasn't without controversy, but then you look at what happened after his death. The British essentially looted the place.
Looted?
Oh, yeah. They took his incredible jeweled throne, dismantled it. They took his swords, his library, scientific instruments, and that famous mechanical tiger mauling a British soldier.
Enthused tiger.
That's the one. Shipped off to London, now in the V&A Museum, it became a symbol, a trophy of British victory over this defiant king.
So they took his stuff, studied his rockets.
Exactly. They took the physical symbols of his power, his innovations, but, what they couldn't take was the impact he'd made, the fear he instilled in them for decades, and the sense of pride he represented for many resisting colonial rule. He refused to be a puppet king, refused to just sign away his kingdom. He fought with vision, with strategy, with science, and that makes him stand out.
So, despite the complexities, he remains this powerful symbol.
A very powerful symbol, yes, of resistance, of innovation, of courage against empire. One of the last major Indian rulers to truly challenge the British on his own terms.
We've covered a lot here, from the Rocket King's military genius, his global thinking, his efforts to build a modern state. Tipu Sultan was undeniably a major historical figure.
Absolutely. He was arguably the last Indian ruler who met the British as an equal, militarily and diplomatically, for a significant period. And his story, I think, really shows what one determined leader using innovation and strategic thinking could achieve even against a rising global power. It's not just history, it's a lesson in challenging seemingly unbeatable forces.
So as we finish up, maybe something for you, the listener, to think about. How do the stories we choose to tell, the figures we elevate, like Tipu Sultan, shape how we understand things like resistance, innovation, even the cost of empire all these years later? And maybe who else is out there in history, perhaps overlooked, who holds similar lessons about courage and vision against the odds?